Welcome everyone to the Athenaeum. As you may have noticed, there's a black wreath on our front door. That's to let all of our friends and neighbors know that there's been a death in our household. You may notice that wreath has some white in it, and that white is to signify that this death is one of our children. Now the child and his mother are in the parlor next to us. So if you would like to go in there and pay your respects for our loved one, please go in and see his mother in her time of grief.
Thank you for joining us in this time of great sorrow. As you can see, I have a child that has passed away. Shortly after a loved one will pass away, the women of the household will begin preparing the body for the funeral and burial. We'll wash the body and clothe it and place it in the casket. Now we're just outside the city limits, and so we have caskets in storage for our loved ones. But you always try to be optimistic and not have an infant casket on hand. So one of our neighbors went to town to get this one for us. Now since we didn't have a casket in storage, we were going to have our wake last a little longer than we normally do. Typically, we will hold a wake for at least 3 days to make sure our loved one does not wake up. The family will gather around in the room where the funeral will be held, and we'll set up day and night just to make sure they don't wake up. During this time, if you had a very weak pulse or were in a coma, the doctor might mistakenly pronounce you dead. So we wanted to make sure you weren't buried alive. Now, if it was going to last longer than 3 days, we would put the body on ice. And I believe that term is still used today, to put on ice. This is also where the tradition of flowers at a funeral comes from. Because the longer the body sat out, it would start to decompose, and we would place flowers around the casket to mask the smell of death. And of course, being outside of town, we didn't have funeral homes, so this is where the funeral would take place. Now, photography wasn't very common, and you had to sit extremely still to have your photo taken. So you typically wouldn't get a picture made of a child, especially very small and an infant. But since this was going to be the only likeness of my child, we had a post-mortem photograph taken that you can see here. Above the fireplace is another one of my children that passed away too soon. This was before these wonderful photographs were invented, so we had his portrait painted. Now, there wasn't a portrait artist in town at the time, so a neighbor who was very skilled at drawing came and sketched my child. And when the portrait painter came through, we gave them that sketch and they painted that portrait. They put him in misty clouds to indicate that he had gone to heaven, so anyone who comes to the home knows that that child has passed away. Now, being that this is an infant, it's a little different, but a lot of folks were buried alive during this time. And so some graveyards advertised that you could have a bell placed beside the grave, and a string would be attached going down to the ground to your loved one and tied to their finger. So should they wake up and be buried alive, they could pull that bell and alert people. And that's where we get the term dead ringer. Now, during the day, this wasn't an issue because people were always out and about. But at night, if they had someone with this bell contraction, they would hire someone to sit in the graveyard and listen for these bells to ring. And that's where we get the term graveyard shift. Now, after the funeral took place in the home, the men selected to be pallbearers would carry the body out feet first. So they carried them out head first. They would be looking back into their home and beckoning their loved ones to join them in the grave. And only the men would attend the actual burial. It wasn't proper for the women of the household to go. So all the ladies who attended the funeral, they would stay behind, clear the room where the funeral was, and then they would prepare a large meal. And after the burial, all the men would return to the home, and everyone would sit and have a large meal. Again, thank you for joining us in this time of great sorrow.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith had 14 children. Only 6 lived to adulthood. So they had, unfortunately, several funerals for their children in this house. And the day before funeral parlors, this is where the funeral services were held. And they took all their loved ones to Rose Hill Cemetery. It's about 2 miles from this location. That's where all the Smith family are buried in one plot. Now, we've had a number of deaths in the home, and some say those spirits are still here, or at least some of them still are. There have been a number of ghostly encounters here in the Athenaeum, and one of those took place just underneath the piano there. And we had a volunteer that was on her knees. She was cleaning some cobwebs from under the piano, and she said that she heard heavy footsteps coming towards her. And she heard a man's voice say, "What are you doing?" And she got up to talk to whoever this was, and it's found that she was in here by herself. Now, she was a lot braver about it than I was. She said that she had her earbuds with her. She just put those in her ears and went on cleaning, listening to music. I'm gone, probably. Another volunteer just put some books into this bookcase in the corner of the secretary. As she's coming here to the doorway, she looks across the hall, and in that doorway over there, she said it's a perfect silhouette of a woman. And she said she could see her waist, the hoop skirt, and light was just radiating all around her. And she stood looking at it for 30 seconds, and said it just disappeared. She was one of these rational people and wanted to try to recreate this. She didn't believe in spooks or any of those things. So she comes through here. Any way she came at that door, it never happened again. So she finally had to admit she might have seen a ghost. So a number of occasions like that have happened here at the home. With so much death in this home. This was the Smith family home from 1837 until 1972. So all the Smith family members, except for the last one, passed away in this home. So we will go into the next room.
In the 1830s, of course, we were out in the middle of nowhere here in Columbia, Tennessee, in this house even. And so you would just get a big pot of boiling water, put some black dye in, and put your clothes in there and dye them black for the purpose of the funeral or your time of mourning. So a woman, a widow, had to wear this ensemble for a year and a day. And for 3 months of that year and a day, she really wasn't even supposed to leave the house. But if she went to church, which was about the only place you could go, she had to have all of this on, or if she appeared in public at all. So she had to have the veil so that no one would see her tear-stained, sad face, or as I jokingly say, her big grin if her husband was not ever here. Poor me, I'm sorry. But anyway, but she had to wear all of this get-up, and the gloves and the fan and everything had to be black. Now, some people have asked me about underwear, and I think what happened, like if you've dyed something black and then worn it, you probably know what happens to white underwear. So, I mean, you may not have dyed it on purpose, but eventually it's going to be like that. Plus, there was this weird material called crepe that they used, and they don't even make anything like that anymore because it's horrendous. It falls apart, if it gets wet, it releases the black dye on everything. And so it was kind of supposed to be part of the torture, I guess, of losing a loved one, was that you had to wear something with crepe on it. They put it on their hats, they trimmed their dresses in it, and then they put it on the wreaths that they put on the door. So that was part of it as well. Now, the husband, if he lost his wife, he was only supposed to be in mourning for 3 months. Now, he could go back to work, and he would wear a black armband on his arm and a black hatband just to show he was mourning. But the reality is that he had to go back to work. Plus, he might have to find another woman to marry to take care of his children. Now, along those same lines, if a mother is mourning a child, if it was an older child, she would mourn for a year. But if it was a younger child, maybe she would just mourn for 3 or 4 months. So it was kind of an odd hierarchy. And there was a book that would help them out called Castleman's Household Guide, which I think told you how to prune a tree, told you how to can something, and then also told you how long to be in mourning, and probably even what to serve if you were having mourners come to your house. So it was like all encompassing all the things you had to do when you were a woman back in those days. Another interesting thing that they did, they had special jewelry. Some of it, and see, I've already forgotten. I think it's Peta. See, I'm just going to tell you about the vulcanite, because I've heard arguments about it. Really, it was vulcanite, sorry. It wasn't that Pertagocha stuff. But anyway, it's black jewelry. And it looks to me like almost like rubbery, but they had carved it into something, you know, a heart or a rose or whatever. And people would wear that. And then they would also wear jet, which kind of is shiny, so that would have to be in the latter part of your mourning time. Then they would also do something that was called a memento mori, which is like a memento of death. And it was created with a person's hair. You would take lockets of their hair and braid it into a bracelet, braid it into a ring, or you would just braid it and put it into a locket. Sometimes they would even make big pictures. So if you've ever been in a museum, I hope you can sort of look around and see if they have examples of that, because it's very interesting. Or, you know, obviously you can go on the internet and look, but it's very interesting the beautiful things that they did with that.
After a death, if you were the first person to see your reflection, you would be the next person to die. So covering the mirrors was very important. I would hate to have the job of covering the mirrors, though. Now the portraits, you notice, are covered. Mainly, it's the eyes of the portraits, because they had the belief, again, superstitious belief, that after a death, the soul of the deceased would go into these portraits through the eyes and possess the living. So they made sure to cover the eyes of any living person that you had a portrait of. Now, if it was just a small photograph, you'll notice anything on the bookshelf that is a small photograph is either turned to the wall or laid down flat. And if it was hanging on the wall, you covered it with fabric. Now, not all of their customs back then were superstitious. This one is more sentimental. When someone passed away, they would stop the clock at the time of the death. All the clocks in the home would be stopped at that one time. And you didn't start your clock back until after the supper that she was talking about. After they buried the body, they had the funeral supper, and only after that was finished would they start the clocks back, and things would begin to go back to normal in the household. Because while your home was in mourning, you weren't thinking about the present, you were thinking about the time you had spent with the deceased person. And you'll notice that all the pianos in the home, we have 2 pianos in the home, they're all closed, all sheet music is put away. You didn't have music, laughter, games, any of those things in your home while you were in mourning. So, all that returned after the funeral supper. Now, on this side of the home over here, we'll go through that doorway in just a minute, are the bedrooms. The first bedroom that you'll come to will be the bedroom of Reverend and Mrs. Smith. These are their portraits here. You can't see them because of the fabric, but that's them. Some of their children are pictured around the room and the other portraits. The other bedroom that you'll come to last is the girls' room. That's where their daughters slept. All the girls would share that one bedroom. The boys had the room upstairs. And now, it's rarely open for tour, but tonight it's open. There have been a number of ghostly events that have happened up there, and there's a guide up there to tell you about it. And if you're brave enough tonight, the basement is open. The basement's creepy for me during the daytime. I don't really go down there unless I have to, but if you're brave enough, check it out. Some of the things that have happened on this side of the house have been, especially this woman that is seen, that was spotted by the one volunteer in the doorway. Another volunteer saw this woman while he was in here getting some pictures for a grant. And he's taking pictures of damage that needs to be repaired. And he's standing in front of a dresser, and the dresser has a mirror on top of it. And he's standing there in front, he looks in the mirror, and standing behind him is a woman. Now, he thought it was his wife because she's a pretty brunette, and the woman he saw in the mirror was a pretty brunette. And he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" He looks out the window, she's outside. So they're pretty fast. I think even the wife might have had to come turn the lights out for him. He wasn't coming back in. Now, they say that women, especially women, if they're on that side of the house, they'll be walking through. It's like a child will come up and hold their hand as they're walking through the home. Now, with so many children that have passed away in this home, it's Not really. It's creepy when it happens, but they say they don't feel anything malicious. It's like somebody's holding their hand as they walk through the house.
Well, you found your way down the stairs. I'm sorry I didn't get to warn you about the treachery of coming down the stairs, but most of you have lights. You can use those, and I encourage that. Use those. Also, we're getting ready to step down into the ghost room, where the ghost hunters come and do their filming and their listening for spirits. I have 2 little lighted devices here. If that beeps, don't be afraid. What that is, it detects temperature change and barometric pressure change, which is what the ghost hunters actually use in part of their determine if there's a spirit nearby. It may send a false beep because we have now warmth here, but it mainly is detecting drops in temperature. I like to relate personal experiences, none of which I have a lot of. You came from upstairs, did they tell you about the books?
Yes.
Okay, can anybody explain that? No? Did anybody explain the music box?
Didn't hear about
The music box is in the parlor. It's closed. It's a wind-up, big pedestal music box. You have to wind it up. Now, to my knowledge, it doesn't play anymore. And what this lady heard was music playing. And the top was down and it was not wound up. Now, it doesn't work. It's old. Old as the building, 1837 when it was built. How do you explain that? So those things sell me more than hearing strange noises. You're hearing a lot of walking on top of us, but I personally have felt a blast of cold air in my face. If you notice, there's no open ventilation down here. No windows are open. So how do we explain that? I don't know. Just a one-time thing, and I'm down here every week to check the property. I never encounter anything but that one time. I've heard some things, but that's just in an old house like this, you kind of expect that. If you do need to leave quickly, just follow the candles the same way. Don't divert off into any of the rooms.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the upstairs room of the Athenaeum. I'm here to tell you about this place. Life and death happened here. This was the children's room. And back in the day, you would have had beds coming out from the windows. And of course, the front porch out there. And there's another small porch behind this bed with an opening that gets to it. On a good cool night, they would have hammocks. They'd sleep outside on the hammocks. You know, you didn't have air conditioning. I guess it get kind of warm up here, have all the windows open. We tell you about a couple of the children, several of the Smiths family, they lost their children. Two of them we talk about is Charlie and Otay. Charlie and Otay were tight. They were close. They were years apart, but they were like this. And of course, with a lot of sickness and disease back then, Otay, she passed away as a toddler. And she's buried over at the family plot at Rose Hill Cemetery. We're going to have a cemetery tour here next month, so y'all come back to that and you can go meet Otay and her brother Charlie. Charlie was so distraught over losing his sister that he would be caught standing on the bed here at night looking out the window. At Rose Hill Cemetery, the trees weren't there, not all the buildings. It was a clear line of shop. You could see the cemetery from here. And they would ask him, "What are you doing, Charlie?" "Oh, I'm looking for my sister." Well, like I said, he was so emotionally distraught from it, he himself got sick and he died 6 months later. So now he's with his sister, forever together at Rose Hill. So that's where they rest. Over time, we've had paranormal investigators that have come through here, and they've done testing. They actually brought out some toys and set them out, and we've got video footage of the toys moving around, balls moving around like they were being played with. Wonder what that was. Another thing that people tell us that happened up here is that they'll see a woman walking around up here, going past the windows and everything, and footsteps downstairs. And so they'll come running upstairs, looking to see what it is. There's nobody up here. So they don't know. oddity that happened up here about 5 years ago. I was doing this same tour. And of course, you've been told this is what's left of that girls' school. The bookcases behind you and over here and on the desk are full of all the textbooks from the school. This wardrobe is also full of those same books. And I had walked over here where these two ladies are standing right now, and I had turned my back and was getting ready to tell people about the books over here, and all of a sudden that wardrobe flew open and books flew out on me. I mean, it scared the hell out of everybody. And downstairs, with all the boom, they didn't know what it was. That was another oddity that happened that very same night. Somebody said they saw somebody out here on the porch. But that's not possible because we had just ripped the floorboards out to get rid of the beehives that were nesting in it. So nobody was walking out there. I don't know what they saw or what they think. And then the other strange thing is that a lady standing right where you are, ma'am, all of a sudden she said she got a chill, got violently ill, and she took off running out the door. That was a strange night. Personally, I think it was because we had some other paranormal activities going on downstairs. There was some tarot card readers and other investigators here, and I think it upset the spirits that were here, and so they decided to throw a fit that night. I'm not sure. One of the things that happens in the house now during modern times is that we have weddings here. The bride will get ready upstairs in this room, and the groom will get ready downstairs in the kitchen house down there. When the bride gets ready, she's all dressed, ready to go. She's getting ready to head out. All of a sudden, this rocking chair will just start. So as the bride, she's getting ready to leave, we'll turn around, and she'll hear that noise, and she'll see that chair going off like that. And she says they have feelings of joy, good warm feelings going on with them and everything. So we're hoping that the spirit is telling them, we hope you have a good marriage, congratulations. Either that or run while you can. Anyway, we're glad you all here. Oh, one last thing. These signs right here. Dr. Smith had put these up. These are original around the outskirts of Columbia. And it was to give you directions to different places. Some of these places don't exist anymore. But it was pretty neat that he had done all that to help the citizens of Columbia so you know how far different Lawrenceburg, Pulaski, Buffalo Road, I don't think that exists anymore. The Florence Road. Anyway, this very full of history here. As I said earlier, we will be having a cemetery tour. If you want to come meet the family, we'd love to have you on. They'll answer any questions or not. If they do, let me know. Anyway, enjoy your visit. Please be careful as y'all go downstairs. Okay.